Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Slava Tarugan, an assistant manager at the Stanford Alumni Association. And on behalf of the Stanford Alumni Association, I'm happy to be moderating today's special session, Ask Me Now Q&A with Career Coaches. We have three very special guests today who have volunteered to answer your career questions. If you want to reach us at any time online, visit alumni.stanford.edu. And here you will find Stanford Career Connect under Resources. And that's where we keep all of our career resources for Stanford alumni and students. Students are also eligible. You'll find our job board, the alumni directory, career tools, and all of our career-related social media. We're also happy to bring you resources like today's interactive session. Over time, you've asked us about career coaching, and today we'll be answering your career questions. We're testing out Google Hangouts as a platform for delivering career coaching in this manner, and we hope you enjoy the event. It's a live, interactive session, so please, if you're watching this today live, post your questions by clicking the Q&A button on this video module, and then scroll down to the Ask a New Question button on the bottom right. It's a green button. You can also post comments on the event page below the video module. And of course, if you wish to contact any of our guest coaches after this session for individualized one-on-one coaching, feel free to reach out to them directly. Their contact information is posted in the details section of the event page and also on the Stanford Career Connect website in the coaching section. And so now please allow me to introduce today's guests, Robin Reshwan, Julius Paras, and Rainbow Chen. Robin is the founder of the founder of Collegial Services, which offers students and professionals career development coaching along with internship and job placement services. Robin is a business leader with some of the largest international staffing firms and has interviewed, placed, and hired thousands of people across a broad spectrum of companies, industries, and functional areas. Welcome, Robin.
Good morning. Thanks, Slava, for having me, and we look forward to addressing everyone's questions today.
Thank you. So next up, we have Julius Paras. Julius is a Stanford alum, and Julius is the founder of Gumption Studios, offering leadership coaching and business consulting. Over the past year, Julius has worked with hundreds of individuals ranging from high school students in South Texas to social entrepreneurs from around the globe to executives and elected officials in the San Francisco Bay Area. Welcome, Julius.
Thanks. Good morning, everyone.
And last but not least, we have Rainbow Chen. Rainbow is a Stanford alum and a career coach. She's the former strategy consultant with Booz Allen to Fortune 500 consumer product companies and an independent human resources consultant to Charles Schwab. She was an assistant director at the Stanford Graduate School of Business, and today she leads her own coaching business. Welcome, Rainbow.
Hi.
All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and delve right into your questions. The first question we have from Federica, she wants to know, what would your advice be to someone who is still figuring out what field he or she wants to work in? Is there a way of staying ahead of the game while not really being a part of it yet? And we'll go ahead and start with Julius, if you would like to kick that off.
Okay, so that sounds like a question about career switching or what have you. And I know that myself and my colleagues will have a lot of answers for that. But the one thing that I would highlight about that question is how big is the jump between the current career and then your future career? And is there an exercise you can go through, what I call the as-if exercise? If you were doing this career full-time right now, what would your life look like? And which of those things are you doing right now? So I would pose that as a challenge to you and see what kind of distinctions those are in your own life.
Thank you, Julius. And now moving on to Rainbow. Rainbow, what would you say about this? If somebody's not sure about what field, they might want to move into a field, but they're not sure yet, and they want to stay ahead of the game, but not part of it yet. What would you recommend?
Sure, yeah. I love what Julia said, and I would add on the idea of doing informational interviews. So that is my favorite thing, is to really encourage people to go out and talk to people who are doing the thing that they might be interested in. And you can learn so much by speaking to people who are in the field, finding out what they love about it, what are some things to watch out for in entering the field, as well as doing the function itself. So I highly, highly encourage, doing the research online, but really get out there and talk to people.
Thank you, Rainbow. Robin, you're up next. What would your advice be? Someone is still figuring out what field she wants to work in. Go for it.
Absolutely. So I would echo what both the coaches said. Plus, add on, come up with your own priority list of really what you want from your career. And what I mean by that is, for some people, it might be I need to earn a lot of money, or it might be I'm after a certain location, or there's skills or an interest in a certain product or service. But you have to come up with your own priority list first and see how this potential change really lines up with that, and then layer into Julius's point, really envisioning, okay, so what would my life look like in that job? And I can't agree more with Rainbow on the informational interview concept. And so when you're first new in your career, you can more formally ask for informational interviews. If it's someone more experienced, we would just call that networking, right? Start to ask people that are in that field if you can just pick their brain and learn a little bit more about it, so you can start to see what aspects of that career or what opportunities might be there for you.
Thank you. This is good stuff. Let's move on to our next question. So Summer wants to know, what is your advice for a mid-career professional who wants to explore other opportunities? I'm concerned my resume will look like I bounce around too much, as each position is 1.5 to 2 years per job. Do employers care? Is this more normal for my generation? And she says she graduated in 2008. So let's go ahead with Julius. What would you recommend?
2008. My first value judgment is like, I'm not sure if you're mid-career yet. Is that, what is it, 5 to 7 years out? That could be 1 or 2 jobs, but that depends on, it all depends on you. And you'll hear me saying, like, it depends a lot in these questions. With regarding to the bouncing around comment, I've heard that you don't want to be perceived as a dilettante and doing this and that. I mean, there are at least 2 camps. Some people will value that you did do different things, and some people won't. And you won't know until you're applying for those jobs where the people are the decision makers are behind those. I think for me, in terms of a coaching kind of guidance, would be those things that you're bouncing around to, do you really value those things? And are those the things you, even if it were just 6 weeks to 1 year, did you really enjoy those for those time? Because if that was the case, then generally people like people who know what they want and are doing, whether it's a 6-week period or a 1-year period. So I'm all for going for those things, even if it may look kind of connecting the dots and having to make a story out of your career.
Very good. Rainbow, what would your recommendation be?
So to me, the job search is all about marketing, right? And so getting clear about what the audience, your employer is looking for, and then being able to share I call it the benefits and features, just like your marketing, your skills to speak to what the employers are looking for. So I personally switched jobs every year for 5 years until I went back to Stanford and coached MBAs for 8 years there. So to me, it's about, can you tell a good story? If you can tell a good story of why you made those changes and why you're really excited and why those skills that you got from those different jobs are going to be beneficial to the employer now, then that's what they're looking for. So to me, it's all about, can you spin your comments or your experience so that it makes sense to who you're talking to. I'm a good example of having been able to actually do it.
Yeah. Very good. Thank you. Robin.
Yep, so 3 things on this. 1, you're still early in your career. So I think in general, employers have more tolerance for movement in someone's first maybe 5 to 7 years of their career. Secondly, hiring is about risk. And so you have to understand, when you're sitting in front of someone interviewing, they're assessing how risky of a hire are you? Because really, for a business, they start to capitalize on their investment in hiring usually between 12 and 18 months. So someone who moves frequently gets the upside of their investment and then leaves before the business gets paid back in terms of your productivity. So understand that a hiring manager is going, I don't know, if you're moving every year, you might be an expensive proposition for me, and I have to weigh, do you have more value than you will cost me in training time? And then third, conservative employers tend to look for an average of 2.25 to 2.5 years of tenure. Doesn't mean every job has to hit that, but it means you need to show the ability of working through corporate transitions, management, positions, and when you leave too often, an employer starts to wonder, can you not work through the tough stuff? Or do you leave every time it's not exciting? And once again, you go back to being a riskier profile. So to Rainbow's point, yes, there's certainly some very accomplished people that can spin that and work through it very successfully because they offer more benefits than they do downside. But for a lot of employees, you need to be very calculated and say, how can I keep my average a little longer to show that I do have the ability to kind of trudge through the mud to get to some of the shiny stuff on the other side?
Very good. Thank you. Our next question, Ryan wants to know, do you have suggestions on how to become recognized as an influencer or leader in an organization while holding a middle management position, i.e. you don't have that much authority? So Julius, what would your suggestion be?
Participate. Be outside of your job. It depends. I'll say again, it depends on where your job is located. Is it something where you're doing primarily individual work? Are you in a corporate location, in a campus setting where you see your coworkers all the time?
I want to know, do you have suggestions?
Hello? Oh, I hear
Sorry,
some feedback.
who was that?
Okay, it's okay. Regardless, I think, and you'll hear probably the other folks saying as well, it's how do you enhance your visibility to the positions that you want? And maybe one suggestion is participate in committees, volunteer task forces if you're in the kind of organization that has, it's usually a larger organization that has those kinds of different activities and opportunities for you to be visible. So that's one way to do it.
Okay, thank you very much. Rainbow, what would you recommend?
So I agree absolutely with Julius. Finding, first off, of course, the main thing is make sure you clarify your deliverables and really, I like the what is it? I'm sorry, like over-promise, under-deliver? That's not right. Under-promise, over-deliver. I was like, what am I doing here? We want to make sure you give you correct and really realistic and good advice. So make sure that you really make sure that you've got your key tasks done first. Like you want to show that you're valuable first and foremost, right, in your specific role. And then from there, ask if there are more things that you can do where you can get more visibility across different departments. And so if there's a task force being created, things that where you get more opportunities to be around other people in different departments, that will give you a chance to have more visibility. So if there are things even on a social nature, right? So there are sometimes different, for me as you know, ethnic minority in some ways, being included and being involved in staff organizations around that have been proven very fruitful as well, because you're just getting to network with people from different parts of the organization.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Thank you. Robin.
Yeah, so remember, management skills are different than most everyday staff level jobs. And so one of the things you want to do when you pick special projects and other initiatives, look for those that let you exemplify management traits. Not just get in the limelight, not just do the extra work, but really say, what things can I do that will show people I have executive level skill sets? Because that's really key. Also keep in mind just ROI. How does my business make money, and how do I get closer to those revenue lines and show that I understand how the business gets profit, moves forward, what our customers are looking for, and then once again, be smart about the projects and things you do to make sure that they're exemplifying those traits that management have, not just exemplary execution for the position you're in today.
Very good, thank you. Moving on next from Rasha, we have a question. What is your advice on trying to find a part-time job? I'm now a mom of a young child and would like to be working 30 hours max. a week. Julius, what would your suggestion be?
Wow, that's a great question, and it's faced by a lot of people. I'm actually a dad, and I'm working for my business. I consider my full-time job being a dad, and my part-time job being a consultant or a coach. This is really important where you're making efficient use of your time for those 30 hours a week. So make sure that you're doing something that you think is manageable in that time. And I like, if you listen to the questions and some of the advice that we've already given from the what Robin said about risk and your approach to risk, so that's something to consider with the employers. I would bring it back to the one point that I would to bring out from your question is, in that 30 hours, does it fit in with your overall family perspective and priorities of what you are available to do? And is it something that you want to be doing in that 30 hours a week?
Very good. Rainbow.
So I absolutely echo. I think a lot of, any of the career advice that we're giving in terms of like how to get clear about what you're looking for and what you want, then going out and talking to people to see if there's an alignment between what you're looking for and what's out in the marketplace. Those still all apply, whether it's a full-time search or a part-time search. I think I would imagine that talking to people in your mommy's group or people that are in your sort of in a similar situation as you and finding out what they've done. I personally also, because after leaving consulting, I wanted something that was a lot more balanced. Looking at the top 100 companies in the Working Mothers magazine was one that I looked at, even though I still have yet to find my beloved and have a family. But that definitely was a really good resource for me, was looking at the Working Mothers magazine.
Yep. Good. Yeah, and I too, I'm a mom with 3 children. First of all, I think it's great that you're already thinking about you want to get back to work, because I think that's one of the most difficult hurdles for people is if you completely cut out of the workforce for an extended period of time, your jump back in is a little trickier. So if you can stay connected even in a part-time capacity, that makes it easier as you want to increase. Secondly, determine how much childcare coverage you actually have. And this is key because some jobs, if you're doing it from home, it's one thing. But if you're going to a workplace and you are the main provider of if a child is sick or if they get out of school early or if there's transitions, you want to make sure you pick a career or an part-time opportunity that will enable you to have that flexibility. Because unfortunately, if an employer is counting on you 30 hours a week consistently and every other week you're asking for a change in that schedule because you're the primary child care provider when things change, that's not going to take too long before that employer gets frustrated with you. And then I think third, really make sure it's a job that, as Julius mentions, meets your family dynamics, such as a 30-hour-a-week sales job most likely means you've got some lingering effects for the evenings and the weekends to work on proposals or to follow up on deals. That may or may not work for your family. Now, the benefit of a role like that is you might also have commissions in addition to your hourly rate, versus someone who knows, I only have my 30 hours. They might want a position that all the work gets done there and it gets left and you don't think about it or bring it home with you. So really weigh those two options. But, as a business, we actually place a lot in this space. And I think it really comes down to your family's priorities and then finding a position that matches that.
Excellent. The next question is, how valuable is it to connect with a headhunter in the job search process? Julius, let's start with you.
Wow. This is, admittedly, I have least familiarity with this question, so I may even pass on this question just to allow Robin and Rainbow to add more information in this area. It really depends on a lot of factors.
Okay. Rainbow?
You're talking about headhunters?
Yes.
So what I think about with headhunters, it depends on your field. I think in the tech world, headhunters can be really useful. But the main thing I always caution my clients to think about is that the headhunters, you have to think about where their, we'll call it loyalty, but their cash flow revenue basis is coming from putting someone into the position, right? And so they get paid when they get someone in the position. So they're not necessarily your career counselor, right? They're not there solely for you and trying to make sure that you're getting the best position that's right for you. Certainly some of them do have that care. I have some friends who are headhunters and recruiters, so there are people who actually will take the time to make sure they track their candidates well and do what's right for the candidate, but really their loyalty is more to the company. So I just always want to make that distinction so you know what is going to be most impactful and helpful for you. If you're looking for support, someone like one of us is going to be completely fully there for you. At the same time, with the headhunters, it's kind of a balance, right? Like you utilize them because they will have some, especially as you go up in your seniority, they will have some view into positions that are probably not being widely publicized. Especially like a C-level position, right? Those aren't going to be publicized, but they're going to have a headhunter, executive recruiter in there looking for the best person, and they're often going to be looking for people who are already C-levels elsewhere and trying to bring those in. So that's why they do want to have good relationships with people, because they know that then they'll have a good candidate pool in the future. And just a word of thoughtfulness around making sure that you're also working with someone who's solely going to be there to support you.
Very good. Robin?
Yeah, so in my case, I come from this world for quite some time. So a couple of things about working with recruiters or executive recruiters. First and foremost, if you are currently employed, don't go pick a random person to be a recruiter that you work with. You want someone who's going to handle your search very confidentially. This is a very small world, and especially with things like LinkedIn, and it's so easy for people to connect the dots between a job seeker and an employer. So you want to make sure you're finding a trusted partner who's got a track record of making sure they're not shopping your information without your knowledge or potentially risking the status of your current job. So I say that's number one. Number two, make sure they're networked in the space you want to go into. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. So if you are nuanced, for example, in manufacturing, go and find out what manufacturing companies, what staffing firms or recruiters they work with, and then those might be the recruiters you want to talk to. And then third, recruiters aren't a magic bullet, so they can't change your background. So for example, if you're looking to switch from one career to another, and a recruiter may not be your best way to do that because, of course, employers are paying them to find that purple squirrel or that needle in the haystack who's going to be less risky because they're already paying a recruiter fee on top of your salary. So when you're trying to make a career transition, you're not as marketable or as placeable of a candidate as someone who's already invested in that particular path and is bringing a certain level of expertise that's highly desirable to their clients. So don't expect a recruiter to be the sole focus of your career search, but they're an excellent networking partner to add into your strategy.
Excellent. So our next question is, what are the first 5 steps you suggest for someone who is looking to make a career change after 20 plus years in a totally different industry? How valuable are recruiters, career coaches, mentors, consultants, etc. in this case? And we've kind of touched on it slightly, but this is a different angle here. Let me know what your thoughts are, Julius.
Well, this is an entire ecosystem of questions in one question. So I think there'll probably be a lot of answers for this. I'm wondering why I use the number 5 as far as, what are the 5 steps. And my 5 questions are actually, I don't know if you've heard this exercise before, but asking why 5 times. Why are you switching after 20 years? What question do you get after that? Then ask yourself, why are you responding in that way, and why are you responding in that way? The reason I bring that up, not just to make a joke, but it's really clarifying what the reasons for your change are. You've obviously invested a lot of time in the 20 years that you've had in this one particular industry, so you have to really understand why you're making the switch, what are the necessary things that it takes to make that switch, and obviously leverage some of the questions or the answers that we've had to questions before, and then some of the following advice that you'll hear. Be very clear why you're doing it.
Very good. Rainbow.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think I was thinking about this earlier, and it's really, as Julia said, it's really getting clear about why you're making that switch and the self-assessment. To me, like if I think about sort of the paths of I think of a career wheel, the very first thing to me what's important is really understanding your vision and your values, and really doing the self-assessment so that you're clear about your interests, your skills, your values, and understanding what it is that you are wanting now that is different from before, and making sure that some of those things that are part of us all the time, like our values, some of them may switch over time, but oftentimes our interests are often formed early on in young adulthood. And so just going back to making sure that you're clear about who you are and what is it that you're looking for. So creating like a vision of what your career and your life want to be together, having that sort of like be the foundational piece. And then moving forward, looking at sort of once you know who you are, then looking at exploration as sort of the second phase of like what is it that you're interested in and what is out in the marketplace. And then doing what we talked about earlier, the informational interviews to understand what's actually required and what's a good way to move into different fields and functions. And then you move into the actual like putting a stake in the ground and deciding what you're going after. And then that's the whole job search implementation piece of making sure that you market yourself well through networking, your resumes, cover letters, and interview, etc. So to me, the main thing first is to get clear about your self-assessment and knowing what it is that's important to you.
Very good. Robin?
Sure. So here's my 5. First, map your priorities. And I think both Julius and Rainbow talked about holistic ways to really get a sense of that, but really get it to paper. What am I trying to accomplish? Secondly, you need to really do a list of your assets and your personal skills, right? What am I bringing to the table? What do I feel good doing? What am I hoping to grow and learn in? Third, look at your interests. So that, what Rainbow was talking about in terms of starting to figure out, where am I leaning toward and why do those things appeal to me? Fourth, I would call it research and deconstructing the jobs that you're targeting. So it's all well and good to say, for example, I want to go into social media marketing in the high-tech space, but go deconstruct what those job descriptions are asking for and say, how does my background map so I can start to paint that picture? And then that 5th piece is take action. Because I think too often people complain about, I don't like my job, I want to make a change. And they may go through those first 4 steps, but then they never actually do anything about it. So that could be reconnecting with previous coworkers, having coffee with people. If you're, a lot of times you have connections through social things that you do and starting to talk to them about their careers and the advice they might have, or going to job fairs, networking events, whatever it is, actually do something, because, everything is great in theory, but really at the end of the day, it's what you get out and do and actually go after that'll amount to something.
Very good, thank you. Our next question is, with the applicant tracking systems that are out there, how does one grow in their career without having the correct matching job titles? I'm amply qualified, possibly overqualified, but keep receiving rejection letters for insufficient experience. So her job titles from her experience aren't matching what these tracking systems are looking for. Julius, what would your suggestion be?
Okay, there are a couple of, I'm going to unpack that question a bit because I think it's a great question. There's getting past the filters of the machines that are looking at your resume versus getting past the filters of the gatekeepers and decision makers who are actually making the decisions on your resume. And with regard to the machines, that again is an area that I'm unfamiliar with the tracking of specific keywords, and I think it's dangerous to put in words that may not represent you just to be meta tagged and be picked up by the machine. I think when it comes down to the actual hiring decisions and interviews and people talking to you, if you feel that there isn't evidence, so to speak, of your work, of your expertise and your work history, this is where it's important to actually do an inventory of all the places that you might have worked and validate some of the work through references, demonstrating a portfolio of work that you have that you can actually show. So for each, almost if you had to have a bullet for each place that you worked with, what you were responsible for, can you actually demonstrate either through a product or with a reference from a former colleague what you had done? So my answer was more along the human side of the filtering than the actual machine tracking.
Very good, thank you. Rainbow.
So I'll reiterate something I said earlier. It's all about marketing, right? And especially with the application tracking, because so many companies now require you to do the online system because if they have any kind of federal grant, federal funding, then you have to have the online system. So there's two things. One is sort of what tagging on to what Julia said in terms of both the making sure you get noticed through the resume database, but also making sure that you're still doing the networking, right? So you're doing live phone calls and interviews with people so that you get a chance, or meetings, to get a chance to get yourself in front of them. I think so many times people just, like go inwards and just do the job postings and apply online, and really people are making decisions based on who they know, right? If you think about the hiring process, people want to hire people that they know or people that their teammates know. So just remember to spend your day looking and trying to talk to people, and then spend your evenings applying. Quick thought on the applying. I do think it's dangerous, like Julia said, to just kind of throw in keywords that don't actually match to what your skills are. But if there's any way that you can speak in the language of the employer and use their words, their keywords, that's what they're searching on. So find ways to get those keywords into your resume as much as you can. A lot of people call me the resume queen because that's a lot of what I do is how do I get those words, and talk about onto your resume and talk about what you've done in light of what the employer cares about.
Great. Robin.
Yeah, absolutely. So once again, echoing what Julius and Rainbow have said, a couple of additional points on this is you've heard me mention deconstruct. You need to take those jobs, you need to deconstruct what they're asking for, and then you need to use like terminology. And the visual I tell people is think of it as a T. It's a T resume. To the left is what they're asking for. To the right is how your skills, experience, or passions address what they're looking for. Now here's the key, because you mentioned feeling overqualified. Remember, there is a reason why some employers ask for a certain amount of experience and not more than that. So you have to really think through, well, why in this case would they want only someone that has 3 to 5 years? I have 20 years. Certainly I can do the job with my eyes closed. Well, that may be a reason they may say, well, that person's not going to be interested in the job for very long. Or maybe there's new best practices that we do in our company that someone who's had 20 years somewhere else is going to have to unlearn and learn our new methodology. Now, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but remember, you're trying to get them to hire you, so you need to think through why are they asking for the things they're asking for, and how can my background match up to it? And we always tell people, you need to be the best version of yourself, but you're still you, so you can't put on someone else's hat for the purpose of the resume. And then also, on the piece of a resume, don't overlook little things in your resume. So I'm actually a certified professional resume writer, and one of the things I find people do all the time is they just write a laundry list of what they did in the past versus talking about actionable items, accomplishments, and write them in the words that make sense to your target audience. So sometimes, too, you may find if you actually look at the paperwork you're submitting, you've got some opportunities to strengthen your brand and how you match for that job. And then finally, yeah, there's nothing that will shortchange the benefit of having a person in the inside. So connect the dots. If you know someone in the company, they can get you to the front of the line faster than any well-written resume. So do not overlook that networking to find a way to also apply online and then get an inside person who helps to bring your resume into the process.
Great, thank you. I wanted to remind everybody we are a little more than halfway through the session, so keep those questions coming. You can post them by clicking the green Ask a New Question button inside the video module view. You can also post comments on the event page. So we're going to move on to the next question. This is a little industry specific. DJ is asking, what advice will be given to someone transitioning from the nonprofit to the for-profit sector? Is it more common from folks to go from the for-profit to nonprofit than the other way around? If you have experience in this area, go ahead and see if you want to take a stab at it. Julius. Oh, Julius, you're muted. Hold on one second.
Hello, am I
Yep, we
audible
can
now? Thanks. this is one of those I would ask is, why are you wanting to make the switch from for-profit to nonprofit? Most people want to do that because they want to make more money. If that's the case, you have to demonstrate how your skills are going to create value and add value to the business that you're going to be joining, regardless if it's a technology company, if the focus is on social media, or if it's something less technologically oriented. So usually that's the main reason that people switch. And without knowing more about your background, I would also ask why. What's the reason for the change? So that's just a piece of it.
Great. Rainbow.
This is a good example of how we all wish that we had a chance to actually speak to each person that's asking a question, because we would love to have more information to understand how we can best serve you and support you. So, I did bounce back and forth between for-profit to nonprofit and back. And what really helped me, again, is just keeping that network alive and really being clear about why, like Julius said, I wanted to move into a field. And being able to, again, market my skills to match to what the employer is looking for. Because when you're clear about it and when people can feel your passion for something, then, and you can demonstrate that you really do understand the industry, you could possibly consider doing some contract work. There are startups out there that are always looking for people to help them. I'm not recommending that you work for free all the time, but sometimes, doing a little, just a little bit of project can, in a field that you're interested in can help you develop the skills and have something that you can put on your resume so that they can see that you're actually truly interested in it. It goes the opposite way if you're going for-profit, nonprofit. Nonprofits want to see that you've done the volunteering. So it's similar in that sense. But it's really be clear about what you're going after, understand what they're looking for, and then show the passion and talk to people. Because anytime you're making a career transition where you don't look exactly like the people that they think that they want, then you really have to be out there talking to people, because they need to see you, feel you, and then they'll be more willing to take a bet on you.
Very good. Robin?
Yeah, so first of all, research always supports exactly what Rainbow said, which is you have to know yourself and you have to know where you want to go. When you can demonstrate those two things in a meeting, that's an undeniably strong combination, because most people can't do both, and they can't do it succinctly, and they can't do it in terms that are of most value to the employer. So that's a huge piece. Secondly, most nonprofit endeavors have for-profit businesses highly engaged in their business, whether they're on boards of directors, whether they move a certain amount of corporate cash and work with, so for example, Levi's, very big with Habitat for Humanity. So most corporations these days have nonprofit passion areas that they're involved in, and most nonprofit have corporate sponsors that help to help their business run. So really look for those connections, because that can help you to move back and forth and to start to ask a little bit about how would I make the jump from one place to the other in either direction. And then, I think the advice that both Julius and Rainbow gave are spot on those other areas.
Excellent, thank you. The next question is, when Stanford alumni reach the age between 40 and 50, they regularly have to deal with company politics as middle management level, and sometimes have been victimized by those. So they have to change their careers suddenly. What would your advice be for this age group? Julius, let's go with you first.
Well, okay. I'm having difficulty with this question a bit, as I don't know if that's demographically the pattern for this age group. So it's a difficult question for me to ask, to respond to. Again, this is where I would really want to ask for questions of the person who posed the question. I would ask, what's the nature of the difficulty, the politics that are mentioned in the middle management ranks? Sometimes these are questions of advancement. So I would ask in those areas. If it's regarding career switching, I would refer to what our answers were from the previous questions. If it's a matter of simply not getting along with people who are superiors, I shouldn't say simply, but if that's what the area is, then I think that's another set of questions. So again, my apologies for really wanting to understand the true nature of the question, because I think this is a very sensitive question, and those are what that's what my feedback is for that particular person.
Excellent. Rainbow?
I feel very similarly to Julius. I feel like there's a lot of layers inside this question, and to really be supportive, and it's like we need to really understand the situation more the way that Julius unpacked it further. So I feel the same way, that I would really want to understand what's really going on. Is it a cultural fit? Are there, looking at, is this a pattern even, in your previous employment? What are those sticky points, so that you really learn from, each experience that you go through? So that I really want to ask more questions before I could, certainly you can give first pass answers, but I feel like this one's got a lot more layers to it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Robin?
Yes, so I also agree this is a trickier one, but a couple of things just in general. One, if you're in a large company, look above you and say, is there a very solid executive team that's non-changing? So they have a way they do the business. And something I used to hear a lot in one of the corporations I worked for is, don't forget what brought you to the dance. And the executive team at that company had stayed in place for 10, 15 years. They were going to do things one way. And if you weren't interested in doing it that way, really your career was somewhat limited at that company. And so, I don't know about this person's situation, but they may need to assess, are the politics things that are there to stay? In which case, do they want to play those politics, or is it time to maybe look to move somewhere else? Second, it's not a bad question to ask your supervisor. If I'm interested in position X, what are the things you're looking for from me to consider me for that promotion? Because that's a very neutral question. It's not placing blame, and it's a proactive question that's stating that you're looking to go forward, and what is this person looking for from you to make that recommendation. And then I think third, Rainbow's point, if you find yourself in this scenario more than once where it's not me, it's them in your head, you may want to take a look at yourself and what you may be doing to contribute to the scenario, or what you could change to get a different outcome. Because if it happens more than once or twice, it probably has more to do with you and how you're seeing the world and how you're interacting with it, and less of what's above you. But no doubt, there is politics in every business. You just have to figure out, is it something that you can feel okay about working through, or is it time maybe to look for another organization where it's a better match and you're in more alignment with those above you?
Great, thank you. The next question is, what advice would you give to someone who is in their early 30s and is just now getting a Stanford bachelor's degree, and does not know whether this degree will get them a job? Julius, what would your advice be to such a person?
Wow, that is a great opening line for a pitch. I'm just getting my bachelor's degree at age 30. That's outside the norm, and that will get you a conversation with many people. So I think you have to value that you're an outlier, first of all, because there's a whole story to tell there. The second thing is, I've had the benefit of being a Stanford alum and working at the Stanford Alumni Association. There are so many resources to support you, from colleagues at SAA to classmates and what have you. You've picked Stanford for a reason. Now it's time to make use of it. And so, pick up the phone, go by the Alumni Center. Please do that. Those would be the two things that I'd say as low-hanging fruit, so to speak, that you have a story to tell, be ready to tell it, and go to the Alumni Center. Make use of the different resources that Slava and colleagues there have definitely put together.
Great. Rainbow.
I absolutely echo Julius, because as a Stanford alum, I have definitely utilized the resources, whether it's at the Alumni Association, or I've gone back to my old career counselors at the Career Development Center, even my professors. I have definitely spent time back on campus with my professors and spoken with them about where I am and what I'm looking for. They have amazing ins to the industry, because a lot of them do consulting in different industries. They also have some of their favorite alums that they love to put in contact with each other. So just remember to look in your backyard, right? I mean, especially right now, you have the student card, right? And so yeah, you're older than the average student. There's a great story, like Julia said, that you can tell. And you can use that student card to go out to people and say, hey, I'm working on writing an article for my club about, high achieving professionals in C-level. May I speak with you? Or I'm putting together a panel, for this club or organization. So you have a lot of ways that you can utilize the fact that that you are, still in school. So I definitely highly recommend using what I call the student card. And it goes back to a lot of the same things that we said earlier, being clear about who you are and what you're looking for, and then finding ways to connect the dots there.
Excellent. Robin?
Absolutely. So here is where LinkedIn can be a huge benefit to you, because you have a great career center, you have a great alumni program. Part of the benefit of Stanford is that networking. So also use LinkedIn to really seek out professionals that went to Stanford that may be in a space that appeals to you. So for whatever reason that you pursued the degree you pursued, now go look for people and do a search of people that are in the field you want to go to and went to Stanford, and you can certainly ask them for their advice. Secondly, you will do so great in interviews because you had enough passion that drove you to go back to school and complete your degree, which we know a lot of people would love to do it, but just they're not brave enough to do it, and they can't make it work with their life. So you did. And so from an interview standpoint, not only do you have a great story, but you probably have a lot of the benefits of life experience. So in terms of your conversation, in terms of how passionate about where you want to go, in terms of knowing yourself, you should be 8 years ahead of their new grad in terms of communicating those things on yourself. And I think that's a great benefit for you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I'm going to skip over a question here that we've already touched on about being a parent and then re-entering the workforce. We have a question here about strategies for how to explain time off of the workforce. How would you talk to it? This person says, I have some gaps in my resume from motherhood, but also from illness. Thoughts on managing that? Julius.
Okay, I think there's the thoughts of being kind to yourself, of not judging what those gaps are for whatever reason. Some things in life are predictable, some things are not. So there's that aspect of it. There's the management of how to position and market yourself to the prospective jobs. I myself have taken extended time off for traveling overseas. This, again, these are some touchstones you're going to hear in our conversation are, why are you doing these things? There's rationales, and just be sound and understand why you did them and why you made the decisions you make. A lot of the interviews and explaining these types of situations are exactly that, what Rainbow said. These are the narratives of your life, and now you happen to be tying them into the jobs you're pursuing. So really own your experience and understand why were those the circumstances in your life and why you made the decisions that you did.
Rainbow.
I absolutely echo Julius. It's so important that you're clear about the choices that you've made and that you have a way to communicate them. So, because really the interviewer is going to respond to you, right? There's a lot of psychology behind and science behind limbic systems and our connection to each other as humans, but and in light of that, like if you're at all wonky about why you made some decisions or why you have gaps, if you even call them gaps, right, that might be also a thing to look at, like a reframing, to look at like, these are all part of my experience and here's why I made those choices. So the more that you're stolid about it, the more the interviewer is going to respond to that. If you're a little wonky, they're going to feel wonky, if that makes sense. So so there's that initial piece for yourself to get clear on, and then there's the how do you talk about it and how do you present it on your resume. Easy tip is don't put the month and the year on the resume, because if they're within a year gap, if you just put the year on there, then you may have it so that you can't even see the gap. Again, if you call it gap. So I'm big on really finding ways to write it in your resume. So again, the thing is, like, don't put your years on the left-hand side, because in the U.S. you read top to bottom, left to right, and so you want to not have people see that first, because really that's not that important, right? If they want to know the details, they'll ask you later. Your resume is a marketing document, not a historical document. Your resume is there to help you get your foot in the door, have them say, oh, that's interesting. Let me call her and talk to her more and find out more about why she would be a great candidate. And then again, we'll go back to the same things we said earlier about really networking and getting yourself in front of people.
Excellent. Robin?
So I would agree, you need to own it. It is what it is, and whatever the experience was, it's part of who you are today. So I'm a big fan of you own it, you don't have to sugarcoat it. I will say, as someone who's been in the staffing profession for 20 years, every recruiter knows when you see just years, someone's hiding a gap. So that's an immediate red flag. Now, is it better to have someone see it as a red flag, or is it better to show that you were absent from the workforce for a couple of years? I don't know. That's kind of it's a personal feeling, but as a recruiter, I know when I say years, someone's covering something. Secondly, whatever story you're painting on your resume, paint it on LinkedIn as well, because oftentimes people will pad a resume and then put exact timeframes on LinkedIn, and 92% of corporate recruiters look at LinkedIn. As soon as they get your resume, they go to LinkedIn. And so make sure that those things are seamless and in lockstep together. And then the final thing is, when asked about it, have your one-sentence pitch and move on. So I think, Rainbow's point could not be better said, which is, make yourself comfortable with it. It is life. Life happens to everybody. So you should not feel bad about having time off. You should just say, you know what, I was off for health reasons or family reasons, whatever it was, and now here's where I am and here's where I'm looking to go. Because if you linger on the subject, back to that risk piece, the employer's saying, wait, am I going to hire someone that's constantly going to be having a hard time acclimating to the demands of my workforce because they're still in that time when they were out of work? So if you come forward very professionally, own it, you have your 1 or 2 sentences about it, and you move forward, that is showing that you're ready to get back in the workforce and go forward and not look backward. So all of those things you can pull together to really put together your story and your pitch.
Excellent. Thank you. Another question here. Sorry about that. What is your advice for recent graduates that are eager to enter the corporate world but do not have much work experience? Any tips on how to develop corporate experience while in an academic setting? Julius.
Wow. Congratulations if you're a recent grad. That's a wonderful. There are at least 2 times in your life, but 2 times that are really vivid, where what I call you have a license to do a lot of things. One is when you walk onto campus as a freshman, you have a license to ask any question you want and get no repercussions really for making mistakes. Another license is when you graduate, and if you're a recent grad, you can ask a lot of different things. And this is your I'm thinking in licenses and tickets. You have a license to ask questions, and you can you get a ticket to ask people in corporations and what have you with informational interviews what they do. If you're more concretely, if you're concerned about the notion of academic experience translating into corporate experience, these are things that you can deconstruct your skills. If you're, for example, in a liberal arts major where you had to do a lot of research, you can translate that into research analyst positions and other areas in jobs where you have to mechanically do the actual practice of research. And then more tactically, again, on the job search side, this is a perfect time. Internships aren't just for people who haven't graduated. They're also for people who have graduated. So just a few nuggets are, and this is a theme I have. I mean, appreciate the life stage that you're in, because it actually is a great time for opportunity to go into a lot of places where people may not be expecting you, but you can be there.
Excellent. Rainbow.
So I, again, echo what Julius said. There are so many opportunities on campus, and as I mentioned in an earlier answer, using that student card or the ticket, as Julius said, is paramount right now. This is a good time for you to utilize that. I just wanting to make sure I'm clear. It sounds like you are still a student as well, and you're just talking about maybe being a recent graduate student. So, because you were asked about how to utilize, how to get more corporate experience when you're in academia still. So, again, remember the Career Development Center, they have lots of internships, job postings, and also on campus. So I worked with the Stanford Alumni Association all through college, and I definitely had that on my resume as a job experience, because I don't really care as an employer, in my perspective, where if you get your experience paid or unpaid, if it's part of academia, like I was a resident assistant, RA, head AA, advising associate, and so lots of ways that you can get leadership, team building, event planning. I worked with all the reunion homecomings, so there's lots of opportunities for you to get experience on campus, because basically, the campus, Stanford is an institution, so you can get a lot of experience in the different departments. So I would definitely keep an eye out for what's available right there on the farm.
Thank you. Robin?
Yeah, really great points, and a couple of research studies that echo both of that. So first of all, you are always more hireable when you have out-of-classroom experience. So whether it's an internship, volunteer work, clubs and association, all of it makes you more hireable, and actually the research also shows your pay rate is greater in terms of your first offer for those that have worked and that haven't worked. Secondly, there's LinkedIn itself actually did some research that showed, I think it was like 33% of employers actually hired someone because of their volunteer work. That's what connected them together first. So there's not a concern as to whether it's paid or unpaid. It's just a concern of you're doing more than just your classwork. You're following passions and interests. You're cutting your teeth in the work environment, and those things are very valuable. So don't overlook that. And then, if for some reason, and we see this a lot with people that are athletes, a lot of times they don't have times to actually do a full internship or a job. So do look for project-based, either volunteering opportunities or other types of things. So even if you have a week during spring break or a little bit of time during the summer in which you can do a out-of-classroom type of project, that is still better than doing nothing. Plus, what it gives you is a chance to interact with other business professionals, to start to figure out what things you like and don't like. That will help you making good decisions when it comes time to interviewing and pursuing certain careers.
Excellent. Thank you, Robin, and thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. We are out of time, but I wanted to encourage you to reach out to our guest coaches directly. Once again, their contact information is posted on this event page and also on the Stanford Career Connect website. To find us online, it's alumni.stanford.edu. And that is where you will find all of our information. It's under the resources section, and you will find the career coaching section, which will include the information for today's guests. As I mentioned earlier, we're testing out Google Hangouts as a platform for delivering career coaching to you in this manner, and we really hope you enjoyed the event. And if you have any feedback, please send it to careerservices@alumni.stanford.edu. Thank you again, and we will see you next time.